I always thought danger announced itself with sirens, not whispers at 3 a.m. when family turns your name into a problem to solve. By sunrise, the papers they prepared for me became fuel for a plan they never saw coming, and every signature would matter. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I was awake because the refrigerator hummed louder than usual, and the old house on East 13th Street made those settling sounds that spook the lonely. Through the cracked bedroom door, I heard Ethan's voice in the kitchen, low and practiced, like a man confirming a delivery. Tomorrow we're sending her to the institution. The papers are already signed. My heart didn't just race, it clenched. I stayed very still and let the words arrange themselves into their ugliest shape. Her meant me. I watched his shadow slide along the hallway, phone at his ear, whispering the details that turn a person into a package. Intake time, transport, where to park. I had 20 minutes before the coffee timer clicked and our house smelled like a lie. I grabbed only the essentials and slipped out the side window. Documents, phone, the little fireproof pouch with my living will, and a faded photo of my daughter Natalie, when her smile still reached me before anyone else did. But then, on the walk to the bus stop, my hands shook so badly I couldn't get the zipper closed on my pocketbook. I forced breath into a rhythm and counted cracks in the sidewalk, from one streetlight to the next. At the corner, I dialed a number I kept for emergencies, but never thought I'd use: Adult Protective Services. I told the woman my name, my address in Austin, Texas, and the sentence that turned me from mother-in-law into evidence. My son-in-law plans to commit me tomorrow without cause so he can move me out and refinance the house. She didn't gasp, she asked questions. Had anyone claimed I was incompetent? Any recent hospitalizations? Had I assigned a power of attorney? They convinced me to sign a temporary medical power of attorney last fall when I had pneumonia, I said. I'm fine now. I work part-time at the library. I passed my last physical in May. Document everything, she said. I'm opening an intake and flagging for potential financial exploitation. File a police report for paper trail. Call your bank's fraud desk to freeze any unusual transfers. And book a capacity evaluation with a neutral provider as soon as possible. I wrote each step in big block letters in the margin of a receipt. When I hung up, the sky over East Austin was still ink, but the birds were starting. I knew I had a clock on me, and now it had numbers. Except, at 6:10 a.m., Natalie's name lit my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Her message came through like something left too long in the sun. Mom, where are you? We woke up and your bed is empty. Please, call me, I'm worried. I replayed the message and tried to hear my daughter under the panic her husband poured into her. I walked to the 24-hour grocery a mile away and sat in the cafe under unforgiving lights. I used their Wi-Fi to schedule the evaluation APS recommended with a geriatrician across town for that afternoon. Next, I called my bank and put a fraud alert on my accounts, then initiated freezes with all 3 credit bureaus. A woman in a green apron brought me a styrofoam cup of water without being asked. I thanked her with a smile that didn't show my teeth by 7:30 a.m. I had a ticket number at the Austin Police Department's online portal and a printable confirmation that I'd reported threatened unlawful restraint and potential exploitation. I sent the PDF to my email, then forwarded it to myself again like a spell that only worked in duplicate. One problem: Ethan is not a stupid man. At 8:02 a.m. my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered, and a woman introduced herself as the intake coordinator at a memory care community in Round Rock. She wanted to confirm a compassion transfer for 10 a.m. We'll need her state ID, insurance, and the POA packet, she said, brisk and kind. I lowered my voice. This is her, I said. Cancel that transfer. There's no diagnosis, no court order. I have not consented to any placement. I'm sorry, who did you say you are? She asked, confused. The person you're planning to admit, I said, not confused at all. Please document that I object. She hesitated, then sighed. I'll note the file. In that pause I heard more than paperwork. I heard risk. I heard her thinking about licensing complaints. I thanked her and hung up, then opened the Texas Health and Human Services complaint page on my phone and filled it out anyway. I listed dates, names, the phrase admission without capacity determination. When the form asked if I wanted to remain confidential, I checked no. I wanted my name attached to my own life. By 9:15 a.m., I called a lawyer. The retainer number in my head tasted like pennies, but I said it aloud anyway. If I need you today, what's your retainer? 4800, he said. But let's not spend that if we don't have to. Start with a temporary restraining order preventing interference, and a petition to revoke any stale powers of attorney. We can file the TRO at the Travis County Civil Courthouse. I'll draft if needed. I promised to call back. Then the phone rang with desperation wrapped in love. Mom, Natalie said, please. Ethan is frantic. He said the hospital is expecting you at 10. We just want what's best. I could taste every year I'd spent building a life where my daughter could call me at dawn, and I'd answer. You want what's quiet, I said gently. Quiet is not the same as best. Silence stretched. Where are you? She asked. At a safe place with coffee and Wi-Fi, I said, and I'm perfectly capable of deciding my coffee. That means I'm capable of deciding my address. Mom, don't make this worse, she whispered. Worse than waking to strangers taking me in a van? I asked. She cried then, not loud, just that breathy broken space between knowing and admitting. Ethan said. He said the bank called about the house. Something about refinancing while rates are low. Of course he did, I said. But then, at 10:20 a.m., a text arrived from my bank's fraud desk. Attempt to add new joint owner on ending 4723. Checking declined pending verification. I read it twice. They had tried to put Ethan on my account. The freeze held. Evidence tastes like fresh air. I saved the screenshot 4 places and forwarded it to APS with the note, update, attempted unauthorized account change blocked at 10:18 a.m. I took a rideshare to the geriatrician at 1 p.m. The waiting room smelled like lemon cleaner and worry. Dr. Ramirez introduced herself with warm hands and bright eyes. She ran me through orientation questions that felt insulting and necessary. We did clock drawings, recall words, walk a line, do a simple calculation. She asked about my routines and medications. She asked if anyone had tried to influence my finances. I think they tried to push me out so they can liquidate equity, I said. I'm not confused. I'm cornered. She nodded and typed. At the end, she printed a 1-page statement. Based on today's evaluation, patient demonstrates decisional capacity to make her own medical and residential choices. She signed in blue ink and stamped the corner with the date, June 14, 2024. I held that paper like a passport, except, when I stepped outside, Ethan was leaning against a black SUV at the curb. He smiled a tight smile that never reached his eyes. You gave us a scare, he said. Get in. Let's talk at home. Not without counsel, I said. Mom, Natalie's voice floated from behind him. She was half hidden, arms crossed, face small. Please. I looked at my daughter and saw the version of my life where I got in the car, cried in our kitchen, signed where they told me, and let my days go soft at the edges. I stepped back instead. I filed a report, I said. I have a capacity letter. And I recorded your call last night. Texas is a one-party consent state. That sentence was not for him, it was for whatever judge would read the transcript later. I watched the words hit him. He inhaled like he'd swallowed a bee. He reached for my elbow. Instinct moved me faster than fear. I stepped into the clinic vestibule and asked the receptionist to call security. Ethan's hand landed on air. By 3 p.m., I was at the courthouse with a clerk reading my affidavit about the midnight plan, and the morning's attempted account change. A duty judge signed a temporary restraining order barring Ethan from transporting, admitting, or otherwise interfering with my person or medical decisions. It wasn't forever. It was 14 days. 14 days is forever if you use them well. But then, the bank's fraud investigator called on a recorded line. Mrs. Grant, we have audio of a male caller representing himself as your authorized agent and attempting to initiate a $18,600 cash-out refinance application online. Do you recognize the voice? I do, I said. That's my son-in-law. Thank you, she said. We've placed a hold and flagged the application as suspected coercion. We'll provide a declaration if requested. I didn't cry in the courthouse hallway. I waited until I was under the live oak outside, where the light filters down in coins that don't buy anything but the moment you're in. I rented a room at a motel off I-35 for the night, and slept with the TV on low to drown the looping questions. In the morning I went to the library where I shelve returns on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Mrs. Dalton hugged me hard enough to bruise. She helped me scan and upload the capacity letter, the TRO, and the bank declaration to a new email folder I named June Armour. Except, Ethan filed a petition in probate court to appoint Natalie as my guardian, asserting I was increasingly paranoid, citing a week I misplaced my keys and the time I burned a pot of rice. The hearing was set for June 28. Exactly 14 days out. The clock didn't just tick, it spoke. I hired the attorney. I wrote him a check for the $4,800 retainer and handed him the bank's declaration, the capacity letter, and transcripts of Ethan's late-night call. He built a stack of exhibits, like a little city of paper. Between now and the hearing, he said, no contact except through counsel. Keep a log. Every call, every knock, every request. We'll subpoena the intake, coordinator and the bank investigator. And I want you to see a notary. A notary? I asked. He slid a document across the desk. Revocation of any prior powers of attorney. We'll execute new ones naming a neutral fiduciary. This is how you shut the door they tried to wedge open. I signed my name in a hand steadier than yesterday. I watched the notary press her seal next to the blue ink and felt the faintest shift inside me, like a bone seating back where it belongs. But then, 2 days later, a white van idled half a block from my house. The side read Compassion Care Transport. I filmed it from my porch and called APS. They're here, I said, even with the restraining order. The van pulled away when a patrol car turned the corner. I filed that too. The night before the hearing, my daughter texted a photo of us at Barton Springs years ago. Her message read, I just wanted help. Ethan said this was help. The ache inside me was a private weather system, and it rained all evening. June 28 arrived like a strict teacher. Travis County Probate Court felt like all public buildings, too cold, too bright, and full of people answering for choices made in the dark. We took our seats. Natalie and Ethan sat across the aisle. He wore a navy suit and a look that said he'd practiced it. Our judge was efficient and interested in paper more than performance. She started with exhibits. My attorney walked her through the capacity letter, the TRO, the bank declaration, and the transcript of the 3 a.m. call. Line 11, he said, reading. Tomorrow we're sending her to the institution. The papers are already signed. He looked at the judge. No diagnosis, no evaluation, no consent. That is not care. That is control. The intake coordinator from Round Rock testified by phone. She called me herself and said she objected, the coordinator said. We canceled the transfer. The bank investigator testified via video. We flagged a refinance application initiated online with the son-in-law's IP address, she said. When asked to produce authorization, he referenced a medical power of attorney executed during a pneumonia hospitalization, which is not sufficient for financial transactions. Ethan's lawyer tried to sell the story every tired husband tells about strong-willed mothers-in-law. He called me confused and combative. He mentioned the burned rice. He smiled at the judge like they shared a secret about difficult older women. Then my lawyer called Dr. Ramirez. Calmly, clearly, she described my evaluation. She used words like oriented, decisional, and consistent. The judge listened, chin on her hand, eyes on the stamp in the corner of that one-page letter. Finally, the judge asked me to speak. My voice surprised me by not breaking. I worked 32 years as a school secretary, I said. I balance a small checkbook, bake bread on Sundays, and shelve returns at the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Last fall, sick and scared, I signed a temporary medical power of attorney so my daughter could talk to doctors about pneumonia. That does not give anyone the right to sell my house or ship me somewhere because it's convenient. If I ever need care, I want to choose it. The judge didn't rush. She looked at Ethan, then at Natalie. I take allegations of incapacity seriously, she said. I also take self-determination seriously. She denied the guardianship petition with prejudice. She ordered the immediate revocation of any stale medical POAs and recognized the new ones naming a professional fiduciary. She extended the restraining order into a 2-year protective order, barring Ethan from interfering with my housing, healthcare, or banking. She referred the bank matter to the county's elder exploitation unit. Then she did the thing that turned consequence into arithmetic. She ordered restitution of $18,600 for attorney's fees and costs, payable by Ethan within 60 days, and warned that any further attempt to control my assets would trigger a $500 per day sanction. The gavel fell like a door closing softly. But then, outside the courtroom, Natalie approached me with hands folded like she was holding something fragile and invisible. Mom, she said, voice small, I thought I was helping us all survive. Ethan said the refinance would give us a cushion. Control is not a cushion, I said. It's a trap that looks like a pillow. She looked down. Can I visit, alone? Yes, I said. But you don't bring keys or forms. She nodded. Tears made her mascara track brave black lines that she didn't hide. In the weeks that followed, I made changes I'd put off because love asks you to wait, and waiting is how you lose. I recorded a transfer on death deed so the house would pass to a trust managed by the fiduciary I chose. I set up auto-pay on my utilities and closed any account I couldn't explain line by line. I wrote a letter to my future self with phone numbers for APS, the ombudsman, the lawyer, the bank fraud desk. I taped a copy inside the cupboard where I keep the tea. Except, on a quiet Saturday in July, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman holding a clipboard. "A companion care agency," she said through the screen, "here for a scheduled assessment." "No, you're not," I said without opening the door. "There's a protective order. Turn around." I watched her pen hover over her form, then move. "Client declined," she wrote. For the first time in a month, I laughed in a way that sounded like me. On August 2nd, a certified check arrived for $18,600, drawn on a bank I didn't recognize. The memo line read court-ordered restitution. I deposited it, then sent my attorney an image of the receipt. He replied with a thumbs up and a single sentence. "Consequences are good teachers." I still wake at 3 a.m. some nights because the house makes noises and memory is a muscle that cramps. When it happens, I brew tea and sit at the kitchen table with the capacity letter, and the protective order, and the photo of Natalie when she was 7, braces flashing, hair sticking to her cheeks after we ran through sprinklers at Zilker Park. I remember the midnight whisper that tried to turn me into a problem to be solved. My heart still races sometimes, but it races for me now. And when I hear a van on the street, I smile and let it pass my window like any other thing that doesn't have my name on it.